Hey everybody, how's it going? It's a beautiful day once again in Brighton. There we go, lots of sun. The water's looking lovely. So, yeah, today's been a bit of an emotional one. I mean, I haven't been sleeping because I've been trying to download some stuff. So I had to have the laptop on all night, and I only slept for a couple of hours today. So yeah, I wasn't in the best of moods when I woke up. Basically crying my eyes out for about 20 minutes, which is why my eyes are probably swollen up now. Um, what really helped was basically jumping on the Euphoria bandwagon because everyone's obsessed with it. And I know about the ethical concerns with regards to adults and the portrayal of teenagers doing very, very adult things like drug taking and all the rest of it. But I found that one particular video helped me kind of unpack everything. And it was a video clip of Rue. She was kind of in the in-between space. She was very, very high. And in this image in her mind, she was visiting a church. Labrinth was singing this incredible, incredible song that he created. One fan or I saw online thought that he was a manifestation of death. And I think there's some truth to that because when she embraced him, suddenly she's in the arms of her father, talking about how losing him affected her and how she feels like she let him down because of her addiction and how she feels like she's not a good person. Addiction can do that to you. Addiction can turn you into somebody ugly. It can do that, you know. And she was embracing him, telling him, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not a good person, all the rest of it. And this episode's already aired, so it should be fine. But what struck me was two things. One was that Rue was not narrating the episode because she normally narrates the episode. And when she narrates the episode, she gets inside the minds of everybody else. But in this season, where everybody was telling the truth or having the truth told to them or both, Rue wasn't narrating. She wasn't narrating any of it. And I pointed out underneath that video clip that Rue wasn't narrating because Rue is the voice of deceit. The thing about addiction is that when you're in that space of being addicted, there are these narratives that we tell ourselves in our head that comfort us, like we're doing this for this reason or we're doing this for this reason. We're telling lie upon lie upon lie, and we're building excuse upon excuse upon excuse. And when we're addicted to something, we really think we know ourselves, but we're not getting to the root of, it's like when you're an addict, the only thing you know is what you want, but you don't know why you want it, and you don't know what's compelling this insane desire to have something. Like, you don't know what's compelling it, not really. But then it's like, in this episode, when she wasn't narrating, everybody was getting to the root of their issue. Everybody was getting to the root of why they were the way they were, or the real truth about the ugliness of their actions. So there was no voice to sort of tell them, oh, I'm doing it for this reason, or I'm doing it for this reason, or there's no space to blame anyone else for our actions. There's no space to kind of run away from the feeling of grief that causes addiction to begin with, because when you're grieving that much, your emotions are looking for a safety blanket, a safe harbor. That's what addiction is. It's like the adult version of a child's blanket, but even children can go through addiction. So it's literally a security blanket. When you go through that much fucking trauma, and that much fucking grief. And it can affect people in different ways, you know. The grief can come from different places according to who you are. But when you're grieving that much and you've got so much pain rooted in you, you need to seek, I've said this before, you need to seek something out that can just numb the pain. It's like an anesthesia, right? And a lot of people think that when you're being addicted or something, you're trying to feel good. That's not what we're doing. When we're addicted to something, we're not trying to feel good. We're trying to feel less bad than we did. That's all that this is. So at the root of Rue's addiction to drugs was the loss of her father. At the root of Cassie's addiction to love, not addiction to love. She's not addicted to love. Addiction to infatuation, addiction to limerence, right? Her addiction to limerence, her dad is at the root of that. Lexi's addiction to hiding in the background, Lexi's addiction to judgment, her addiction to feelings of superiority also stemmed from her father. Because, you know, if people aren't looking at her, then the only thing she really has to hang on to is, you know, her so-called lack of addiction. But lack of addiction can in and of itself be an addiction. Being addicted to being that person who's always there and always does the right thing can be an addiction in and of itself, because you get addicted to the high of being superior. That comes from her father. And then you've got Nate's addiction to pornography. That comes from his father. His father basically came right out and admitted it in the most brutal fashion possible. Maddie's addiction to power. I think her addiction is to power. That comes from... That doesn't actually come from... That's one of the unique cases about Maddie. Maddie's issues, just like Jules' issue, it doesn't actually come from their fathers, it comes from their mothers. Jules has an addicted mother, and then Maddie has a mother who is basically just hanging on for dear life in a marriage that nobody's communicating in. So it's like everyone's addiction problems can be stemmed down to their parenthood and the grief and the trauma that their parents bring them. In real life, it's really not that simple, though, because the thing is that grief can happen at any time, just like addiction can happen at any time. Sure, at the root of addiction is pain and grief, and trying to numb that pain, trying to anesthetize that pain, which is actually a natural reaction. If you're in pain, you're going to try to find ways to numb that pain, lest it drive you mad. That's what you do. Okay? But the thing with real life is that addiction isn't always down to childhood issues. It's not always down to childhood trauma, but it is down to grief. And at the root of it all, in that 4th episode, everybody's forced to confront their grief. Everybody's forced to confront their loss. That thing that made them snap and become an addict. And they're, you know, and also I noticed that in the narrative in season 4, it's reversed as well, because the thing is, in season 1 and in the 2nd season, it's like Rue delved into the reasons why everybody did what they did. It was family issues, this, that, and the third. But with Rue, it was really about herself, whereas in season like 2, and especially episode 4, whilst Rue is dealing with the root of her addiction, which is where she needed to be dealing with that, everybody else is having to deal with the aftermath of how their addictions affect one another. So it's really, really interesting. I think Sam Levinson is brilliant. I think The representation is problematic, but the thing about it is that how many people would watch if there was no controversy, if there was no, and I know it doesn't justify anything. It really doesn't. It really does not. We've been having problems with over-sexualizing teenagers and representing them unrealistically for the sake of melodrama. We've been having that conversation. But sometimes you need, there's a saying that in order to tell God's story, you need the devil. There's this scholar, this academic scholar in film or something like that, that talks about how characters work and how we become invested in characters. And there's something about following the worst man in the world on his path to redemption. And that's what Euphoria is. It's following the worst people on the planet on their path to redemption. And it's messy and it's brutal and it's bleak and it's traumatic. People think this healing shit is so easy and it's a breeze. It's fucking not. It really isn't. It's not. The path to healing is messy as fuck. You're going to stumble. You're going to relapse sometimes. Sometimes you're going to be a person you don't recognize, a person you don't want to be. Sometimes you're going to... Sometimes the one thing that you think can make you stand yourself, your addiction, is probably what's going to make you hate yourself the most. Like, there's so many complex emotions wrapped up in addiction and wrapped up in codependence and wrapped up in all these myriad themes. There's so much wrapped in it. And it's like, that's why telling the stories of the worst people in the world are so compelling. It's because, you know, watching their path to redemption, we can relate to that. Everybody can relate to that. Because at some point, human beings know we're way more terrible than we think we are. And I think at some level we know that, which is why we connect more to really, really flawed people doing flawed things rather than people starting off unproblematic and nice. And, you know, we can relate to somebody who's problematic and flawed and has all this shit going on because it feels like us. That is literally us. We come out the womb with that energy. We come out the womb wanting, needing. I need food. I need my mum. I need my dad. We come out the womb wanting. So when we're following these really, really deeply flawed people, it brings us back to that place. And following them on the path to redemption is telling God's story. So whilst I think it's excessive, like HBO is famous for excessive nudity, except in Succession, shout out. Succession is absolutely brilliant. But HBO is famous for trying to fill a nudity quota and like having at least one actor who gets naked like all the time. HBO is famous for that. HBO is problematic as fuck, but even more problematic as fuck is the people who watch it. Because we know that people do that and people are still watching. Okay, so the public need to be held more accountable than the creators, to my mind. You know, we're the ones consuming it, so we need to ask ourselves some real questions. Okay, but it's using the devil, it's using our basic impulses to lead us towards redemption, to lead us towards our divine selves. Now, it doesn't always happen like that. Sometimes the divinity is wrapped up in the baser, but in this case, it's using our basic instincts to lure us in, and then once we're in, well, that's not the reason I'm attracted to Euphoria. I'm attracted to Euphoria because of the emotional shit. It was the same reason I was attracted to Game of Thrones. It was never about the nudity. It was always about the emotional impact, the like wham. That is always the thing that draws me in to TV programs, is emotional impact. But that's me on a baser level. For some people on a baser level, it might be about sex, it might be about something else. But it's taking our need for sensationalism and shock and raw emotion. It's taking all of that and using it to tell a story about how we process things and maybe even inspire us to be better. But you have to be, I feel like, from your 20s upwards in order to get that. I feel like teenagers should not be watching that shit, personally. But again, it's using the devil to tell God's story. That's what it's all about. And Euphoria is very clever. The title's very clever. Chasing that euphoria. We don't see how bleak things around us, because sometimes in order to have euphoria in our lives, you have to live in a certain type of delusion, don't we? So, I mean, I got all that from bit parts of episodes and watching reaction videos. I got all that from reaction videos and fucking like watching documentaries about the series and stuff like that. I haven't actually bought the box set. I haven't actually watched the whole thing. But that's just my summation of everything that I've seen with Euphoria. I think it's very well done. I only wish that the characters were aged up. I think if they were in college, it would have just the same impact and it would make more sense because there would be less parental input. You know what I mean? But with these teen programs, it's always about taking the teenage experience and kind of heightening it rather than representing it realistically. I think with shows like Euphoria, realism isn't the point. Again, baser instincts, we're not looking for that shit. So it's like using something unreal to tell something real. And shout out to Labyrinth for his music, Jesus. That man was always good. Don't let nothing fool you. He was always good. He was always good. But that music, that score, oh. Whew. Listen, man. Listen. I had me all the way in my feels today. Because I was like, no, I feel a bit weepy. Let me just stick some of that on. Get my feelings out. It helped. It really did. But, yeah. When it comes to me, I've just been doing what I do. You know, I was feeling a bit weepy because I was tired. I realized that I have a lot of work to do in terms of myself. I mean, we always have a lot of work to do in terms of ourselves, don't we? But I realized that I have a lot to process and work through. One of the things about being a targeted individual, the fundamental thing that it robs from you, a lot of people say dignity. It doesn't rob you of your dignity. It doesn't rob you of your dignity. If anything, moving through the obstacles that you have to go through as a targeted individual, depending on who you are, it can actually increase your confidence. And it can actually, like, every single day you go through this shit, you hate yourself just that little bit less. So being a targeted individual, as much as people want it to affect your self-worth, it doesn't really affect your self-worth. It doesn't affect your self-confidence. You know, in fact, it might even grow because of the resilience that you show every day moving through it. So you might feel more confident. You know, things that used to really hurt you, now you're able to just brush it off your back because you're literally being tortured every day. So what is there to talk about? So it's like being a targeted individual, it doesn't take away your confidence, doesn't take away your dignity. If anything, it adds to it. It doesn't take away your sense of self, because once again, the abuse is reducing you down to yourself at pre-potential, at sperm level, and that's where you often shine like a diamond, okay? When you're reduced to that level of potential and you can see yourself and the true nature of your soul clearly. So it doesn't rob you of introspection. It doesn't rob you of who you truly are. It doesn't rob you of your confidence. It doesn't rob you of any of that. But what it does rob you of, and this shit is so important, and I didn't think it was important, but it is important. The thing that being a TI robs you of is your ability to forgive. I never realized how important that fucking shit was. I never realized how important it is to truly forgive from your heart and have the space to do that. Being a TI takes that from you. And I'll explain why. Because at this moment, I might shout, I might scream, I might cuss, but deep down in my spirit, this is one of the reasons why perps were able to get around me back in London, because all they'd have to do is say sorry, and I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll let it go. And then they go and do it again. Because deep within me is the urge to just forgive everyone. And it's not even because they deserve it. It's not even because I want my life to be easier. But it's like, who the fuck wants to live their life in hatred all the time? Nobody wants to live like that. Don't nobody want to live like that. Don't nobody want to live through that shit. Like, I'd rather just forgive and let it go. But I'm having to battle two things. A, I was always told that forgiveness was weak, so I'm having to unlearn that. The second thing is, right, is that what is being done to you by perpetrators is so serious that even when you can hear the emotional struggles they're going through, even when you can empathize with what they're going through, even when you're like, nah, I've been there, I get that, you can't allow yourself to feel that because the shit they do is so serious. And then on top of that, they double down on the serious shit they've done. They'll admit they're wrong, but they're not going to admit it to your face, and they're not going to stop doing it. So it's like it robs you of the opportunity to forgive other people from your whole soul. And people don't understand how painful that can be. It's one thing not to forgive yourself. People lack forgiveness for themselves all the time. That ain't an issue. Forgiving yourself is hard. So if we can't forgive ourselves, then we don't feel as bad, because it's not easy to forgive yourself. Forgiving yourself is one of the hardest things you can do. But forgiving other people, this shit should be easy, right? This shit should be easy. But when you're a targeted individual, going through fucking Havana syndrome, being fucking tortured, having the water drained out of your body by these fucking electronic weapons and non-ionized radiation, getting burned, being emotionally harassed, having people trying to section you over bullshit, people committing serious crimes like against you literally every day, all the time. It robs you of your ability to forgive. That's the thing that fucks with me, because I really want to forgive everybody who ever hurt me. I want to forgive them. But because of what it's led to, because of what people who have hurt me continue to do, I can't do that shit. That's the thing that angers me, and that's the thing that fucks with me. I can't forgive you. You won't let me. You won't let me. You won't let me forgive you. You won't let me. People fight. People argue. People have disagreements. People talk to me like a dickhead all the time. I've dealt with that my whole life. But when people don't acknowledge what they've done, and then they double down on top of that because they want to feel sorry for themselves, or they want to just they just want to be addicted to their cruelty and don't want to see a way out. It robs you of your ability to forgive. Now, I know what people are going to say. Well, if you want to forgive, you can easily do it. You don't have to be dictated by what people do. But for me, forgiveness is not just I forgive you, but I'm not going to forget and I'm going to keep an eye on you. That's not fucking forgiveness. When you forgive someone, you squash this shit. Period. You squash this shit. I ain't keeping my eye on you. I'm not looking at you. I'm going to forgive you for what you've done, and we are both going to move on. Ain't nobody punishing nobody around here. We're going to forgive each other. We're going to move forward. That is what forgiveness means to me. It does not mean I'm going to forgive you from my heart, but I'm going to keep an eye on it. No. Shit or get off the pot. If I'm forgiving you with my complete and utter being. If I'm going to forgive you, I'm going to forgive you wholly and completely. I'm not watching you. And it's the same thing if you want to make up for what you've done. You do it from your whole heart, wholly, completely. You don't do that fucking shit again. And being a TI, it doesn't allow you to do that. It does not allow forgiveness. It does not allow people to squash things. It is constant war. People say horrible things about each other all the time. And I really thought that, oh, it was people saying horrible things about me. That's the problem. No. I realized, no, that's not it. I mean, sure, nobody likes being spoken to like a piece of garbage. Nobody likes that shit. But I can't forgive from my whole heart. I have to forgive in portions. I hate that shit. I hate that shit. I have to forgive in portions. If I'm going to forgive it all, I have to forgive in portions. For me, that's the hardest thing about being a TI. I got to forgive in sections. I'll forgive you. I'll forgive myself, but I won't forgive you. I'll forgive you, but I won't forget what you did. I'll forget what you did, but I'm going to watch my back. Like, it's just... doesn't allow you to forgive. And I will forever hate the gang stalkers for taking that away from me, for robbing that from me. My ability to forgive my enemies. I will never forgive them. Ironically, I will never forgive them for that shit. They robbed that from me. The amount of people I could have had in my life as genuine friends. But gang stalking robs that from me because people do serious shit and then they double down on that serious shit. And the second part is the part that there's no coming back from. I will forever hate gang stalking for robbing me of my ability to forgive. I can empathize. I can see everybody's point of view. There's so much in my heart that I want to forgive and that I want to let go because I can see everybody's pain, but I can't fucking do it. I hate it. Goes for everything in my life. Goes for this, goes for my gender, goes for everything. I just want to let it go. I don't want to hang on to shit. I don't want to let it go. But what happens when people not only are cruel to you, but double down in their cruelty? You can't forgive the way you want to. That's the thing that this world fucking robbed from me, and I will never forgive that shit. I will never forgive that shit. Look at that. I think the storms are coming. Look at that. What is that? That's not, I know that's not a fire. It's too big. You see, this is what I love about living near the fucking coast. Like, you can see everything. Like, oh my gosh, look at it. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Oh, look at it. And you can see the water. I wish you could see the water from where I'm seeing it from. That shit is glorious. And look, you can see that little hill there. Look. Oh, look at it. Seriously, it's like something out of a fucking, like, J.R.R. Tolkien novel. I don't know how long I've got in this place, but if I end up leaving here, that's the one thing I'm going to miss. That fucking view, mate. And I look at it every single morning and I'm thinking, what a blessing. What a blessing. Look at it. Look at how fucking stunning that is. And that's nothing compared to what the type of view you get when you step outside this place. This is my home. This is where I live. This is where I live. My God. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Like, oh, you can't, no, like, you can't compete with nature. I don't care where, you cannot compete with nature. You really can't. Shit. Oh, man, look at that. Anyway, you want links to my daily readings? I'm leaving them in the description. You know, you can do what you want to do. I've got a pick a card reading for the love reading. It's brutally honest, but then it's me. I'm always brutally honest. I love you guys so much, my fellow TIs. You take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.